And compromises, and many hoped it would prove a major breakthrough in bringing climate change under control. But now many consider the Kyoto Protocol on greenhouse emissions, which came into force 5 years ago today, both a failure and largely redundant. Laura Ahmed has more.
It was supposed to herald a brave, new, cleaner world where carbon emissions were reduced and everyone benefited from it. But 5 years on, where exactly are we? Well, arguably, we're further behind than we were at that stage. Last December was the Copenhagen conference at which a new deal on climate change was supposed to be signed. Now, the US has always refused to ratify the Kyoto Protocol on the grounds that it would hurt its economy whilst benefiting the economy of those developing nations that it didn't affect at all. This time around, though, in Copenhagen, as I say, the treaty did take into account those developing nations, but this time it was Africa and India that made a fuss about signing any kind of agreement. Earlier I spoke to Piers Corbyn, who is at the head of Weather Action, and here's what he had to say about the two conferences.
Well, Kyoto is of no importance whatsoever for the world well-being, and I hope the Americans never ratify it. But it is now meaningless, and it's been overtaken by another meaningless jamboree, namely the Copenhagen Agreement, or lack of it. And what I think the world needs to do now is to honestly address the fact that all of this stuff is not scientifically motivated, but it is politically motivated.
Added to that, in recent months, the science behind climate change has been called into question more and more frequently. Leaked emails were discovered from the University of East Anglia's climate research unit that said that possibly the data that was being used to prove climate change was being doctored by the very scientists who are working on it. All in all, the science behind climate change is looking increasingly shaky, and the outlook for climate change itself is pretty bleak.
And do you think climate change is actually one big hoax? Have your say at RT.com. So is it fraud or not? Here's what some of you have told us so far. Yes, it's all shameless manipulation of facts. No, it's just the media are scientifically illiterate. If winter gets a little warmer, it's not a bad thing, and maybe, but swine flu is certainly bigger. This one is actually quite popular. So get online and join the discussion on www.rt.com.